Hello and welcome, guys, to the Young Success Story podcast. I'm Michael.
And I'm Jaden. Our goal is to document the journey of some of the most successful young minds around the globe. We hope to highlight their path, showing their failures, successes, and shine a light on the road less traveled.
There's no such thing as an overnight success. Everyone has their own journey, and we are lucky enough to share some of their stories with you.
Today, we are joined by one of the OGs of the fitness community, the one and only Chris William from Limitless Training. He shares his stories from childhood, how he first began to make money, what he's doing now, and what he learnt along the way. Enjoy.
Yeah, we're playing with fire.
No, you're playing with fire.
I played with fire last night.
You're playing with fire for sure.
I've been lit. I've been burnt by the fire, as they say.
We both have, actually. We both have. I'm just finding out about it a little later. This is
On that note,
indirectly burnt.
shall we start?
Yes, we shall.
Betrayal.
Thank you for joining us today, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
No, I appreciate the invitation. I really do.
No worries. I'm excited for this one. Excited.
Do you want to start us off and give us a bit of background on yourself, maybe talk about your family and where you were brought up?
Yeah, okay. So I am 27. I live in Burleigh. I grew up Bullambel Heights, went to Bonora Point Primary School, then Kingscliff High School.
Kingscliff High.
Caught it. I was so far out of zone, had to catch an hour and a half. I spent an hour and a half a day on a town bus to get to school.
Damn.
A lot of time alone.
A lot of time alone with the demons.
Yeah, which prepared me for my adult life pretty well. So completed year 12 at Kingscliff. Studied it was a short-lived, but studied biomedical science at Griffith University pretty briefly. And then during my studies sort of worked out, okay, this is not really what I want to do. And then...
Did you have a part-time job while you were studying or work at all?
Yeah, so in school, like, I had, funny. So I had a pretty good income. I was making a pretty good income from playing RuneScape, actually.
Whoa, I used to try to play that back in the day. It wasn't very good.
I've heard some rumors about this RuneScape account.
Yeah, that's a rabbit hole. So, like, how long have you got? Because I will happily talk about that all day. But
so this is the first time you sort of came into money was with RuneScape.
Yeah, so in school, I was 15. I made around 30 grand playing a game. And I bought my first car with the money from that game,
that's
actually.
Impressive.
But unfortunately, like my parents are relatively, sorry, you asked about parents earlier. My parents are pretty strict. And at the time, they just thought I was the firstborn child. They thought that was the best approach, basically. So unfortunately, I was only able to play on weekends. I couldn't watch TV or anything during weekdays.
Yeah.
True.
So I would have potentially made a lot more had I been allowed to. But I was actually... They struggled sort of comprehending that I was making money from this game. So even though I was only allowed to play on weekends, I still was forced to get a part-time job. And I was still, like, you'll get a laugh out of this, but there were days playing that game that I could make. It was to a degree like gambling, but I could make $1,000, $2,000 in a day. And as I said, I was only allowed to play on weekends, but I would still have to, on a Saturday morning, mow the neighbour Pete's lawn. Because
Thanks, Pete.
which would take me 2 hours for $20.
Oh, no.
Because, my parents, very sort of like traditional, sort of struggled comprehending that people would pay me money for the things I was doing on that game, basically.
True.
So that's sort of...
And so you say you made money on RuneScape. How did that come to real life money? Like, how does that work?
So the game's got like a currency, basically.
Yeah.
And I was really good at the game, and I was selling gold, basically, and I was saving other players. So if you have a little context and you played the game before, basically when I was playing it, per mil it was 50 cents. So if I sold 1 billion gold pieces on the game, that was $500 basically. Yeah.
True.
So I sold the better part of 60 bill worth, which equated to, and my account eventually got banned, but at the time it was, because it's sort of frowned upon, you're not really meant to do that.
Yeah.
But it would have been worth the equivalent of probably like 80, 90 grand at the time.
Wow.
With the gold that was on it, yeah.
And so you were making that much money, but you were forced to work for what, $10 an hour or something?
Yeah, so I had to mow
the lawn,
mow
right.
Pete's lawn, but I actually worked just to keep my parents happy. I worked at Target. Was my first legitimate
sort of
job.
day job.
But I didn't even have a tax file number, so I was getting taxed 50% of my $16 an hour wage. So, like, I was just there to tick a box. That was yeah. So I have
Keep mum happy.
and it served its purpose for a little while, but
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't. Thankful to have been offered a job at Target.
Yeah.
But I didn't learn a whole lot from
Shout out to
Target.
Target.
Target, Target. And so from that point, so playing RuneScape, mowing your neighbour's lawn, what was next? So you obviously didn't last at Target too long, I'd assume.
Honestly, I stuck it out for a little while just to keep mum happy, basically. But there came a point, like when I moved out is when I stopped.
Yeah.
Like push came to shove, and I moved out, and I stopped working for Target at that point because there was no point. Yeah, and like in addition to working at Target in school, I also I started counting calories and tracking my macros.
Yeah.
And training like bodybuilding when I was 15.
Yeah.
So you were in the gym from that sort of age? 15?
Yeah, I did it initially was to make friends. Like to be honest, throughout school, I had a really hard time making friends. I really did. So I sort of figured, okay, that was
your sort of avenue where.
Yeah, there's some guys I'm sort of hanging around, or guys I'm in my year group that are interested in this. Maybe this is going to result in me having something in common, basically, and that's why I started training. Prior to that, I was swimming basically. So I would swim of a morning and of an evening because that's I was pretty good at it, and mum was a swimmer as well.
Yeah, right. What sort of what sort of level swimmer are we talking? Like a state, right? Yeah. Did you find so I found myself, so I used to be a track sprinter. So transitioning, I guess, onto the next sort of phase of the conversation, I found sort of when I went from, I guess, amateur sort of young athlete into sort of working, because I was so used to pushing so hard and doing big hours, training before and after school and all that sort of stuff, I sort of found it easier to carry over from sort of that life into work life. Do you think that sort of your background in swimming and that sort of stuff transitioned over into work as well once you sort of took that leap?
For sure, but not so much working at Target. I can't say that I applied myself to the same, regretfully, and I'm sorry, Steve, who was the manager at the time, I didn't apply myself at Target to the same degree I did to my training. But definitely there's so much I learned from being a relatively high-level athlete that has transpired into other aspects of life without a doubt.
You definitely learn those disciplines, mindsets, and the consistency. If you're that's all transitions over into business.
100%. And for me, I didn't particularly enjoy swimming. I was sort of pushed pretty hard, and really mum loved it. So for that reason, I gave it more time of day than I otherwise would have. I enjoyed competing. I enjoyed that, but. Unfortunately, I like to chat. The black line doesn't talk back, and unfortunately there's only so many times you can count the tiles, and that's. So for me, when I transitioned to when I started training in the gym, I much preferred it because I could talk to people, and as I said initially, I didn't develop a love for swimming, and I'm sure it's given enough time. I perhaps could have, but I just wasn't. I wasn't doing it for the right. I wasn't there because I wanted to be there. I was there because of other reasons, basically. So
when did you transition into your first business? What was your first business?
I would consider RuneScape. To be honest.
Yeah.
In school, I was selling whatever I could get my hands on. So do you remember those power balance bands?
Yeah.
Do you remember those?
Yeah, I did that.
So you did?
Yeah.
I sold a glow in the dark one once for $60. As soon as But as soon as they sort of blew up, jumped on Alibaba and ordered a fair few. And I was selling, pretty much undercutting Amart All Sports. And I was literally going to school day to day with 20 in my bag.
Yeah, wow.
That's funny.
I had the money from RuneScape to order them in bulk, basically. Yeah.
That's funny. I not the same thing, but one thing, my first sort of thing was as well is on Gumtree. Do you know how people put up free advertisements, so an old couch or whatever it was? I used to pick up all the free shit and put it. No, seriously, I used to put it up for say $50 bucks, and if it was gone the same sort of day,
100%.
Sometimes you can make a couple $100, and I was just picking up free shit and just putting my markup on it.
There's tons of stuff on even Marketplace. There's tons of stuff that you could if you're not going to make tens and hundreds of thousands.
No, but if you're struggling, for example, I was an apprentice at the time, so $100, $200 a week, that shit adds up. You know what I mean?
100%. It's all relative, but that's Yeah, that's really cool. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, I was on the DH Gate train, and I used to order baseball caps. So I can't remember. I think
did the same
initially it was really hard because there wasn't because I was a minor, and it was like just the way the site was set up. It wasn't as easy to pay and everything like that. So I'd have to go into my bank, I'd have to wire money to this random account in China that they sort of gave to me. It was super unsafe, but at the time I was like, yeah, sweet, that's just what I got to do. That's what the account told me to do. Didn't get scammed, thankfully, but I used to do bulk orders. I'd screenshot and crop out all the logos of the site that it was. Get people to pick their hats and pick their teams, and then I'd order 25 or so at a time. Send my I don't know what it was, $8-10 a hat, and then they'd all come over a couple of weeks later. I'd sell them for 25, 30. Sometimes because it was random. The ones sometimes you'd just get ones that looked really fake, and you'd sell them for whatever. But then you'd get a random one in that was a super legit looking fake, and I'd bump up the price $50, $60 for those ones.
I do the same thing. That's funny. Yeah. That's so funny. And the safer way, instead of obviously wiring it, use your mum's credit card. That's way safer.
Is that what you did? Oh no! Sorry, mum.
But that's the safer alternative. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's to clarify. Anyone that's considering doing that, that's not advice.
Ask for permission. Ask for permission.
I don't suggest that.
Wow.
But that's so funny. I was doing that, but whatever I could get my hands on. So I did the same hats. I did shoes as well.
Yeah, I tried to do shoes. They were too fake. And then I did the same with Dre headphones. Ordered them in. Sound quality was not great from China.
So you're telling me you've got a connection with Dre, and because of that, you're able to sell these. That's what you're telling me, Jay.
What I actually did.
You telling the story.
What I actually did.
I swear.
I got them in. I got, I think I ordered 20 boxes in, and then I heard the sound, and I sold one pair, and the guy was like, "Oh, they don't sound that great." I was like, "You're totally right." But then I was like, "Okay, what can I do?" So I was in year 8 or 9. I got a guy in year 11 or something, an older kid, to sell them for me, and I gave him a free pair because they weren't going to go to him and sort of bitch about it, whereas they were happy to sort of.
I see what you did.
Yeah, so he was
got the big dog for protection.
Yeah, got the big dog to go do it for me and gave him a free pair.
That's funny. No, they're prototypes. That's why these are.
Take it up with him, mate. It wasn't me.
That's funny. I can picture you as well. No, they're legit. They're legit. Oh, okay, you got receipts? No.
Can't wait till 3 o'clock. Get me home. Okay,
that's hilarious. That's funny. I used the money from RuneScape, and most of my money came from RuneScape, but I used that money to then explore other ventures. And to be honest, the ambition, I enjoyed making money from those sort of ventures, but the whole time I sort of knew these aren't going to be. I enjoy. To be honest, it's probably something I also did to make friends.
Yeah,
because they were never super financially never super financially viable.
I guess. All those sort of things, you kind of learn you don't want to work for somebody else when you can make your own sort of money in so many different avenues.
100%.
Instead of mowing the neighbour's lawn.
Funny story as to how that ended. And it ended before I moved out. But I got to the point, I'm like, you know what, this is my time is better spent doing other things. But I just understand for as long as I'm doing an okay job, I'm going to be continually forced to do this. So what I did is I lowered the blade on the mower. And Pete, it's unfortunate that Pete's lawn was unfortunate because he was actually pretty proud of his lawn. But I lowered it to the point that it just turned the whole thing. I kind of just destroyed his lawn basically. And then from that point, I was never asked to come back. And I thought, okay, perfect.
So you sabotaged your own career.
In
a way.
Well, that was at that point. That seemed like my only option.
Yeah.
Because Pete thought he was helping me out by giving me that job. And Mum thought that it was, and it probably was character building to be mowing, and it probably was. You know what I mean? Again, I had pushing that lawnmower for 2 hours on a Saturday morning in the sun. I had a lot of time to think. About how I was going to get out of that.
That's
about all the things I would rather be doing. But no, as I said, it's can laugh about it now, but at the time they were very upset. With me.
And from there, so take us through the next step. So you've gone through school, RuneScape, selling things at school. And then, so once you've moved out, what happened there? So you started at the gym, or you're already at the gym a lot? And
so I started training. I started training when I was 15.
Yep.
Moved out 17.
Yeah.
So I was already, and then that's when I obviously stopped working at Target. At that time, I got a part-time job it was called Planet Max, which was a sub store basically.
I was already another one.
Yep, I was already. So there was one on West Burleigh Road.
Yeah.
There was also one in Parkwood.
Yeah.
And that's where I was working because I was going to uni at very briefly at Parkwood as well, but or proximal to Parkwood at least. That's where Griffith is. But I was already writing in school. just because I started, again, paying more attention to, I figured, you know what, like I'm going to the gym as often as everybody else. I am struggling to keep up. There's got to be more to it. And that's when I started reading. And I worked out, okay, hang on a minute. Like nutrition has a huge impact. Like there's science that can be applied here to help me keep up with everybody else. And then before I knew it, again, like I was weighing my meal. Like everything was weighed, everything was portioned out in school. I was the one at 70 kilo wringing wet. I'd take my little Tupperware, I'd have my chicken and rice. And in my head, I'm like, all right, you might be laughing now, but we'll see. This will make sense in time. But and then that's kind of what happened. Like for an extra year and a half, it became apparent to sort of everyone that what I was doing was working because I gained a fair amount of muscle. And I started writing diets for everyone else in school that was interested in training and training programs for everyone else in school that was interested in training programs as well. So got the job at the sub store because I figured, okay, this is, again, like it's aligns with what I'm passionate regarding, which was fitness. I developed a love for it. Like every spare second I had, I was reading about fitness and how I could, again, manipulate things to improve my composition, basically. I got a huge kick out of it. And then I worked out, okay, like Substore, that kind of aligns with what I enjoy and what I want to do. And it's something I can plug and play. I know, like I love talking about this stuff. And then figured, okay, this is going to be a bit of everyone that walks into this store, I still didn't look, like I was still a very scrawny sort of teenager, but I figured, okay, like with this T-shirt on, people are going to take me a little more seriously and they're going to be more inclined to listen to my advice. And I might have a better shot at potentially selling more meal plans to anyone that, and additionally, helping more people as well. So I figured, okay, it's credibility by, I'm going to be more credible by working at one of these stores.
Well, so people would come in and buy their supplements and then you'd...
So everyone that sort of came in, I'd make an effort to talk to everyone and make sure that no matter what, like they left with, like they benefited from the interaction no matter what, and basically developed a pretty regular customer base. Obviously the store did, but obviously everyone that came in was familiar with me. I noticed that more and more people were coming on the days that I was working because of just, again, like I loved giving advice regarding health and fitness, and I knew that a lot of it was actually going to be in the best interest of anyone that came in. Like it's not just as simple as taking like a protein powder. There's more to it, you know what I mean? And that's got a huge kick out of that. And then eventually earned my stripes just through multiple conversations, and I started getting asked, hey, can you, from people that weren't personal friends for an extended period of time, like in school you've got that established trust.
For sure, close.
Again, I had people that weren't, again, like super close to me saying, hey, can you help me with this? And that's where, I started really, okay, I can probably scale this a little. Like this can be bigger than it is now.
Is that when you first realised, like, I can really scale this now?
That was, I've had a couple of moments where I've been like, oh wow, but that was, the first, it resulted in like a lot of self-belief when someone that, like I had people a lot older than me that didn't really have like a personal connection to me asking for advice. And for me, I was like, wow, like they must really, again, like I must have really, they must figure that I do know what I'm talking about. And it instilled a lot of self-belief is what it did.
Yeah, cool. And so that sort of, I guess, is that where your brand Limitless sort of started to take off a lot, or where sort of what point is Limitless at this point that you're sort of talking about now? Is it still like really early stages, or is this when you started to, obviously you wrote plans for people in school, you were saying, so when these people started to come in the supplement store, is that when things started to sort of pivot, or was it like
I'll timestamp it. So I had like within 6 months of working at the sub store, I was making around like $5-6 grand a week selling programs.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how old were you there?
17.
Oh, damn. That's sick.
That's cool.
Because it was, I had, again, like I was fortunate enough to be able to stand on, like
what were you charging per program?
$50 a week. So it was like I was selling a subscription basically. Exactly. So I was coaching. So they'd come in for, I actually used the sub store as like an office to a degree. So they'd come in, because I obviously wasn't serving customers all day, and I figured it worked out pretty well for the owner as well, because obviously I'm continually prescribing more supplements, and it brought more people to the shop. Like it got to the point that people were coming to see me for coaching, which in turn introduced more people to the shop as well. So it was mutually beneficial, basically.
Yeah. So the owner of that shop knew this was going down?
That's what he was hoping for.
Oh, really?
100%.
Right.
It wasn't. I wasn't trying to be. I wasn't doing like anyone's calipers in the bathroom or anything like that. No.
Oh my God, what's that?
No. So I had a lot of people like, really, that's, and I should take a step back as well. So what also helped it, like Instagram also really helped it sort of gained a fair bit of traction. So
Yeah.
what I started doing was I reached out to a lot of people. Like this is early. So when I sort of really started working with my first 2-3 clients that weren't again like personal friends of mine and hadn't been for an extended period of time, that's when I was like, okay, this is interesting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reach out to 20, 30, 40 people and coach them for free, and then use that. Like again, I wasn't particularly special looking,
Yeah.
but I figured, okay, like I can prove that I know what I'm talking about by helping others look the way they want to look.
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
I realized pretty early on, like it's, even though I'm potentially doing something for them for free, that's not, it's not just the money that needs to be,
a track record there.
but it's
There's
not
still
just the money that
exchange.
needs to be taken into consideration, because at the end of the day, like I'm asking them to trust me and asking them to follow my
Yeah.
recommendations, and it could be a waste of their time. So there's still like
Yeah.
there's component of selling there as well.
Yeah.
And then as I said, I just helped people that I was really confident I could help. Sort of cherry picked from the sub store, cherry picked from social media, posted those transformations, and that's when I started getting like inbound inquiries from people that were connected with those people. It kind of just like butterfly effect,
Yeah.
basically.
So in order to get sort of, I guess, a bit of a reputation, ability to sort of post things, you would do this coaching for free to try and get, I guess, like a testimonial, that sort of stuff?
That's exactly what I was doing.
Yeah.
Like I deliberately reached out to people
that
I was
you
confident
had.
I could help. Yep.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they were potentially like people I met at the gym, people I met at the sub store, like
Yeah.
just like I'd bump into
Just
people
handpicked.
that would have I love to chat to people. So
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
have
yeah.
a chat to someone at the gym, work out pretty quick, oh, like these guys, they're having a real crack, but they're just not getting where they want to get.
Yeah.
Hey, if I spend the time writing you something, are you going to stick to it? Okay, fantastic. Here's what I suggest. And
Did you, so of those people that you would coach for free, say it was, I don't know, like 6 or 12 week block or whatever it would be, would they usually then continue with you, or was there many of?
fair few. My ambition, like to be honest, the ambition from the start was like I consider myself very fortunate that they trusted me before I actually had a whole lot of testimonials, because I wasn't documenting anything in school, so I helped people and I helped close friends, but it wasn't like I was having them submit check-in photos or
Check-ins
anything
and
like
stuff
that.
like that.
No,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
my thoughts, and yes, a lot of them did stay, but my ambition from the get-go, and I continued working with them for free, because it wasn't a hey, let me prove I know what I'm talking
trial
about
thing.
for 12
Yeah,
weeks,
yeah.
and then we'll talk about like ongoing help. As I said, I consider myself very fortunate for them to trust me when again, like I didn't really have a huge reason to. They were kind of like, for lack of a better term, like guinea pigs to a degree.
Yeah. And did you find that I guess your product, the quality of what you offered improved by doing, obviously, I guess for me, I did a similar thing where I would either, like when I first started, I was doing things for free or super cheap, just to sort of got a camera and sort of did all that sort of stuff just to practice. And then, did things for cheap and for free because I just wanted to do as much as possible. Did you find that sort of in that period, what you offered, the quality of it got a lot better because
100%.
you sort of got experience and all that sort of stuff?
That was 100%. And you don't know what you don't know. Do you know what I mean? So and you can't hold that against yourself either. So I also felt better about, okay, like if this is something I'm going to at some point charge for and charge a decent amount for, or then I need to make sure that it's a good product. Otherwise you burn being able to sell something it's great being able to sell something, but if you're selling something that's not great, you burn your reputation. Is basically what you do. So it's a gamble with your reputation. So for me, I was like, okay, I can also, these people that I'm coaching for free, it's less pressure on me from the get-go. And I just saw it as a huge opportunity to learn. Like, because I'm asking for feedback constantly. Like, hey, what could I do to make this better? Hey, what do you like? What don't you like? And eventually you can ask them like, hey, what would you pay for this? And that's sort of what helped me like find a price point basically as well.
Yeah, wow. That's cool.
Back when you were doing this, was there much competition or other people doing what you were doing?
Not really in the online space, no. I would have been, this is going back the better part of like 10 years now.
Yeah.
So like it was online coaching wasn't
Not what it's like
not
today,
as big
that's
as it
for
is
sure.
now. No, most people were still training, like personal training. They were still coaching clients out of a gym basically.
Yeah.
And no one really had any systems for, like there weren't any apps out there to make things easier. It just was not unheard of, but it was not common.
No, you go.
Well, when was like I guess the next sort of milestone for you, where, like when you realised like, all right, I'm at a point now where I either take it to the next level or,
Well, to be honest, like that's more recent than you might expect. I've had a real sort of awakening. Probably the last 2 years, like year and a half, is when I've really thought, okay, this could be a lot bigger than it could otherwise be. Because I struggled with for a long time. I thought that every problem could be solved by working harder and working for longer, and that's what I did. And I sort of like, as I said, it grew pretty quick initially, and then I hit a ceiling. It would have been probably like 2.5, 3 years in. I hit a ceiling and I got stuck there because I had, and that ceiling for me was around like 20K-ish a week. And it was just me.
Did you have staff members then?
No, it was just me in front of a computer, 18 hours a day, leveraging access to myself basically, because it's a skill set I hadn't developed. And to be honest, like it was ego that held me back a little bit as well. Because at the time, I very much liked the attention that being the guru was resulting in. And I loved being that person that people were reliant on basically. And I sort of like, the metric kind of changed. I wasn't paying as much attention to the money as I was like, I'm exhausted at the end of the day. Perfect.
Yeah, so
it's
did
been
you
a productive day.
Out? Is that was when you had your
100%.
realization? Is when you like hit this point where like,
Yeah.
I can't keep continuing doing this.
It wasn't until I knew what not being burnt out felt like that I was able to recognise that I was burnt out for the better part of probably 5 years. But I had what sort of happened is I had, and it again upon reflection, like I wouldn't change anything because it resulted in some character traits that I'm really proud of. But I had a bad experience hiring really early on, and I deserved to. I had no idea how to recruit, no idea how to train. I had no system, so it was reasonable to expect it not to go particularly well. But I hired someone who had a bad experience, and for me that just again reiterated, which I was just like, well, that's unfortunate, but no one can do what I do. I'm the only one that can do this. There's no point trying to hire more people, which was, again, like a huge limiting belief for me.
Staffing is definitely hard, but if you hire the right staff, it can absolutely
100%. And that's what I've realised like the last year and a half. But for me, that's where, when I, like telling myself that, it also made me feel good. As I said, I was sort of using the business to a degree to like satisfy character deficiencies. So for me, it was making me feel good about myself.
To
and
recognise
I was like,
that now is massive though as well.
Yeah,
Self-development.
But that's when I opened up. So I sort of hit the ceiling, got stuck there, and I was just, again, burning the candle at both ends. And I thought, you know what? Like this is just as far as this is going to get. What I'm going to do to go further, I need to do more things. And it was just uninformed optimism. So I opened up a barber shop, opened up like a cosmetic tattoo clinic, opened up like a topless waiting agency that Jaden's actually been a part of temporarily.
Me? Not me. I don't know what you're talking about. Moving on.
Oh yeah.
Who's paying for that?
So there was
You'd be surprised, Michael. You'd be surprised, my friend.
And I did supplements and I did clothing, and because looking back now, it's again, like I recognize that all businesses have problems, but it was uninformed optimism. So I looked at other opportunities and obviously had some money that I'd saved. I'd lived pretty frugally the entire time. So I had some money, and it was pretty easy to like open up, it was perceived as easy to open up a barbershop, open up all these different businesses. But it's because I had no context regarding any of those. I didn't realise they've got just as many problems and there's just as many obstacles that you're going to have to overcome. And I knew obviously fitness so well, and for me at the time, what it really boils down to is I took the easier route, or what I thought was the easier route, which was okay. Like I don't know, and I didn't want to accept that I didn't know how to hire and train people. So I thought, okay, what I'll do is I'll just jump to a different opportunity, and that's how I'll break past this.
Sort of make a little bit more.
Yeah, that's how I'll break the glass ceiling. Basically,
keep doing what I'm doing
that
here.
Was literally.
And so what happened there? So obviously, I'm assuming that wasn't as easy as you first thought.
Well, it's with involving myself in those businesses. I soon realised, okay, like it looked easy from the outside, but it's only once you actually get your boots on the ground and you start tampering with things and you start building those businesses, they have just as many problems. It's arrogant for me to think that I'm going to be exceptional at anything when I'm doing 7 things at once. Like a magnifying glass is only hot when it's focused.
Yeah.
And again, I'm thankful that I did that, because that's the lesson.
You wouldn't have realised.
100%.
Yeah.
That's the lesson. That's the lesson I learned. But like you can be exceptional at anything, but you can't be exceptional at everything. And it took me again the better part of like 7-8 years to learn that.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough last week to do a bit of Mitch Third's morning routine. Do you have any what sort of, like, obviously you were weighing your food, you were very strict on yourself. I'm assuming you were pretty structured. Did you have a pretty hectic morning routine or anything along those lines?
Now or
in this sort of this sort of time?
Well, at the moment, like just for context, the big shift about a year and a half ago was, as you said, it was learning that the right staff can make the biggest difference. And my issue was just not knowing how to hire, not knowing how to train, and that was a big unlock for me. And that's since, like, it's been about a year and a half, 2 years now, and we've now got like 11 staff for Limitless Training, and then a fair few contractors as well. But and I've sort of really tried to move away from, like, I'm doing my best at the moment to do less but better, basically. So I'm doing my best to get away from all the other things so I can focus on the one thing, because obviously by focusing on one thing, you give yourself the best opportunity to solve more problems. And obviously the more problems you solve, the better the product, the better the outcome for your customers, and the better the reputation of the business. And that's where something will really grow. But morning routine wise, now I get up pretty early. So I'm up at 3 a.m. I'm up at 3 a.m. and I'll work now for about 2 hours until 5. I'll then train from 5:30 until like 6:30. And then from there, my team gets up at, like, the sales team gets up at 7. So I'm typically getting pulled in different directions. Like, once they're up, I'm not
each day's a bit different after that.
Yeah, I'm not as focused, and I will tend to, like, if someone needs me here, someone needs me there, because I just don't have,
Get pulled from.
Yeah, at the moment, that'll change with time as well. But I don't have multiple layers of management yet. It's still very much, there's still a lot of things that are dependent on me.
Yeah.
And I'm working on that, basically. That's a lesson I need to learn as well. But that's what my morning looks like at the moment. So 2 hours I'll dedicate to, like, the big rocks, the stuff that is going to have the biggest impact on the business. And even if it's just thinking time, like sitting there doing nothing, sitting there and thinking about what could be improved upon, because you've got to allow yourself time to think.
Yeah, for sure.
Is another big lesson as well.
Thinking time.
Yeah. And then the rest of the day is, like, pretty much from 7 until 6, just work. And then I'll read from 6 until 7, and I try and be in bed by 7:30
PM?
every night. Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Obviously not. Stupid question.
Yeah, I'll try and be in bed by 7:30 every night. Whereas you flash back when I was burning the candle at both ends, very different. I was measuring the wrong metric, but I was working for 18 hours a day, and I was so burnt out that I had no clarity, and for that reason, I couldn't focus or prioritize. So every day I was sending as many emails. Like, what I was taking pride in is, I sent so many emails, I took so many calls, I helped so many clients, which is all great. But again, like, now that I have the perspective I do, not like the difference between like 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure sort of entrepreneurs, in my opinion, is the things that they consider worth their time, basically.
Do you think
that's the biggest shift?
The quality of work has improved?
100%. When you are at that point that I was at, which is just exhausted, everything felt hard, like incredibly hard. And Jaden obviously has known me really well for a fair while. He'll attest to it. Like, I was so spread thin. I would just default day to day to the monotonous stuff that I didn't really have to think hard about. And because I had no bandwidth, I wasn't actually capable of solving complicated issues. So, like, the business, all of the businesses stalled because I only had enough time. Like, I was spending all day treading water, trying to keep my head above water, and I didn't actually allow myself any space or time to think about what could be improved upon. So I was just tolerating the problems that the business had, and yeah, like, it's for a long time, working harder and working for longer served me really well, and it got me really far. Yeah, but there came a point that wasn't a solution. That solution wasn't going to result in me being able to take things to, like, a different level.
Yeah. And so I guess on that, so obviously you sort of worked really hard and you're doing these massive hours for so long and sort of burnt yourself out, and then you sort of had to do all this to learn all these lessons. Obviously, I guess it's easy to say sort of, like, I don't regret it because, you know, this is the lesson that I learned from it, sort of thing. But I guess that's sort of, I think I've been in that boat too, where you're like, okay, I can do this. This will earn me good money. I'll just keep doing that, and you sort of spread yourself thin. I guess if you could not necessarily go back and change something, but while you're in that sort of process where you're sort of on the grind, you're earning all this money, it's really not necessarily like, it's hard to sort of recognize, okay, I can only do this to a certain point.
Yep.
What advice would you sort of give yourself or give someone that's sort of either going through that now or is sort of on their discovery, they've sort of got into something and say they grow it to a certain level? At what point do you go, you know, what have you found have the steps? Obviously you said you tried to hire someone and it didn't really work out. Is that sort of the most important thing? And sort of how would you, what would you change and what advice would you give yourself or someone else in that situation that's sort of going through that?
Well, for me, like, again, it felt good. Arrogance was a big issue. It felt good to tell myself for a long time, no one can do what I do. And that held me back for a long time. And I looked for evidence to prove that right. Do you know what I mean? Whereas, like, my advice to anyone that is currently working huge hours and things are sort of like you've sort of hit a glass ceiling, I guess, would be like, if that's all you, like, if you're happy with how much you're making and you're happy with how many hours you're working, amazing. Like that's fantastic. And if you're confident that you're going to be able to sustain that, fantastic. But if nothing changes, nothing changes. If that's where you're at, you can't work more. Like if you're already working 20 hours, like, hard work's not going to get you any further financially if you change nothing, right? And it took me a little while to realize, but hard work was the goal for a really, really long time. And that's what I was, like, day to day, I'd go to bed and I'd be like, all right, unless I'm exhausted, unless I've got nothing left in the tank, my day hasn't been well spent. Yeah. But it again has sort of, I guess, recently occurred to me that, like, if hard work was the secret, then there'd be, like, there's people in rice fields that work way harder than all of us. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's laborers that work way harder than me. So it's not, and they're not. That's not the metric. They're not at the highest levels of the game. So it's leverage and volume. That's the that's what you need, basically. And you can be, if you've got leverage, it doesn't really require much volume to get a pretty damn good outcome. So for a long time, I just didn't understand leverage. So for me, I can send a couple hundred emails a day, but if I've got a team of 10 working for me, and they're all sending emails, again, like, I'm not going to outwork 10 people. I'm not going to outwork 15 people. And it just comes down to, okay, like, how far do I actually want to take this? And accepting, okay, to take this further, I'm at the ceiling now, to take this further, doing what I'm doing is not going to work. It might result in you having to take one step back financially, like allowing yourself some time, working a little less, to then go, okay, like, I need to hire someone. I'm going to have to make time to teach myself or to learn how to do that and how to train, but here's the benefit to doing so.
And put systems in place, I guess, to sort of... Huge. Massive.
But that was, like, advice to my younger self, I guess, would be, make sure that you're measuring the right thing. If it's business growth that you're most interested in, then what you want to be measuring is, like, income, basically. Yeah,
and income potential, I guess.
100%. So, like, for me, had I realised sooner, my income's staying exactly the same. Like, I'm working my ass off, and I'm like, fact of the matter is, if you're working your absolute ass off, but things aren't getting better or things aren't improving, you're working on the wrong things. That's really what it was. Yeah. And for me, it took me a long time to realise that.
Yeah. Were you big on setting goals?
With relation to, like, swimming and bodybuilding, 100%. 100%.
What about transitioning over to business?
Yes. The goal for me is, like, I have financial goals. Yeah. Day to day, I only really have long-term goals. I don't really have...
No short-term stuff?
Not really. Because for me, where I'm at the moment, it's kind of like uncharted territory. So I recognise, like, I'm doing the things day to day that I think are going to get me closer to that long-term financial goal. But for me, I don't really put a time on things because I'm not... Again, I have no context. You don't know what you don't know.
That's one thing that I feel like has kind of helped me get to the next level is, like, let's say if I've got, 3 or 4 long-term goals, is like really trying to break them down. You can almost break them down to monthly and then weekly and then transition them into smaller things. And if you're hitting that stuff every day, that's what's helped me kind of grow to the the next level.
Oh, I see what you're saying. As in, like, making them more attainable by breaking
because
them down. Is that what you mean? Right,
it's easy to say, like, let's say if it was a weight loss goal, I want to lose 20 kilos. It's like, well, that's like that's enough to put somebody off.
Can be intimidating, 100%.
Yeah. If you're like over, a year or two, and you break it down into weeks, I guess, much easier to sort of.
For sure. Like that's advice, like with our clients, for instance, that's definitely advice we give them. For me, I haven't really, like if I'm brutally honest, I've never really struggled with
achieving what you...
No, everything I've said I'm going to do, like I've done or I'm still trying to do. And I won't set a goal unless I've thought about it pretty thoroughly to begin with and I feel like it's reasonable to achieve.
Yeah.
And for me, like I recognise the stuff that I want to achieve, it's going to take 15, 20, 30 years. And that doesn't, for me, I'm like, okay, well, as long as day to day, I'm as far as I'm like, I hope that I'm moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
What would you say at the moment? Like, what's your purpose?
I am really excited to democratize personalized guidance is what I'm hoping to do. Because at the moment, like the product that we sell, we aren't cheap. Personalized advice is, so we specialize, for context, we specialize in helping women 40 plus like lose weight and keep it off. And the reason that we have the target audience that we do, like, and the reason we went as narrow as we did is because when it was just me selling access to myself, I was helping everybody. I had athletes, I had men, women, like gaining muscle, losing fat. We were sort of doing everything. And I just realized, okay, I'm not the most skilled at hiring and training. That's a skill deficiency of mine. I'm going to try and make this as easy as possible for myself and for my staff, basically. So we're going to go narrow. So it's easier for me to teach them. It's only one avatar that they need to be exceptional at catering for. So then all of your systems become streamlined. It gets easier to onboard staff and results in a better outcome for your customers as well.
Better quality work.
Exactly. So we've been developing the last 4 years now. It's been a 6,000 hour project and an app that will make what we do far more cost effective. And that's because at the moment, if you want to reach out to it, like if you need personalized guidance, and most people, like generic stuff doesn't work. It really doesn't. And there's a lot of people that need a lot of help that are just frustrated with the circumstance they're in. And it's hard if you're not very happy with your weight and it's something that's impacted your confidence and impacted your livelihood. It's hard to hear, okay, like I can help you, but you need to learn how to count calories yourself, and then I can help you. And there's a bit of a gap in the market, basically, because that's what most coaches are doing. They're sort of, okay, I'm just going to prescribe you calories, but for me to be able to help you, you've got to go and learn on your own first. But the alternative to that is to reach out to like a dietitian, which is going to cost upwards of $100 a week, basically. So what we've developed is an app that will provide like training, like customized training programs and customized nutrition programs that are going to be honest, like more specific than you would receive, more individualized than you would receive from a dietitian. And we're going to be able to provide that to people at a fraction of the cost because of the automations that we've built.
That's cool.
And I couldn't be any more excited for it.
How exciting.
What sort of time frame looking at to sort of launching that?
So it's been a 6,000 hour project so far. It's taken the better part of 3 years to get it to where it is now. And it's partly the reason I'm bald.
I've got no excuse.
But it should be live in the next 3 months.
Soon.
Is my expectation.
How exciting.
I appreciate you acting surprised, Jaden. Jaden hears about it every day. Jaden wakes up with updates on this app.
You wouldn't believe it.
But I couldn't be any more excited because I feel for me, it's something I believe needs to exist.
Yeah.
And
is it something that you'd potentially be scaling out to other people that are like not just Limitless?
So initially it was built to, because at the moment there aren't really there's tons of software made to help coaches do what they do, but you've only got to look at what coaching costs by anyone that's credible, and it's still pretty expensive. It's still upwards of $100 a week, and that's because there's no software out there that actually makes what we do far easier. Nothing makes it easy for a coach or a dietitian to cater for a lot of people in a really efficient way, basically. And that's what this software has been built to do. So we will prove the concept with our business, and our plan is to scale to 8 figures. And to do that, the bottleneck for the business at the moment is the rate that I can find exceptional staff. With the app assisting my current team, I may not even need any more staff to do that. And that's where it gets really interesting. And then once we prove the concept and once we optimize the product to the point that it's growing on its own and people are that there's a big enough price to value discrepancy that customers love it, that's when we will be potentially offering it to others that we believe are in the industry for the right reasons, have a good reputation, have good intentions, and have the ability to, again, like scale the impact that this app can potentially make.
I think a big thing with our economy going forward is like obviously there's some sort of AI or involved in this. What's your opinion on that with like jobs going forward?
I'm already a little bit surprised. The things that I thought AI would, like I guess the jobs I thought AI would replace are not the jobs that it is seemingly replacing at the moment. So I thought like it's replacing creative stuff. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people leveraging it for like ads, for instance, like copywriting, all that, like again, all that kind of stuff. Ghost writing.
Yeah, lawyers and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I didn't think, like again, it just didn't occur to me that would be the first sort of
impacted from.
Yeah, the first industry, I guess, that would be impacted. But I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity moving forward, leveraging AI, and I think there are going to be a lot of big businesses that have data that they can feed AI to then create a specific business that allow that AI to perform a specific task. Do you know what I mean? So like for us, for instance, we could create, like we've obviously got a sales team and we sell programs over the phone. So we've got hundreds, thousands of calls recorded. If like we could effectively feed the AI those scripts and it would know exactly what to say and when and how to say it. It would just analyze all of the best calls. And then eventually I think there's going to be, there potentially might be AI sales teams. I think there's a huge opportunity for people that have expertise in something in particular, and they've just got to provide the AI with the right inputs, and that's going to impact like what they can charge for that service and obviously the quality of it as well.
Yeah, I think that's major. I think when it first came out, there was all this like, everyone was like, oh my God, have you seen it? But it's like, yeah, what are you using it for? Like there's a lot of people that like, yeah, it's cool. You can ask it like, oh, you know, a random question about whatever and it'll print out the answer. But it's like, it's so surface level. But if you actually can use it and sort of use it as a tool to sort of make something better and add your sort of touch to it, that's sort of...
Exactly. My thoughts are it's a competitive advantage. My thoughts 100%. And it's not to be feared, more so to be, well, there are depends on who's developing it and what they're developing it for. But the stuff that's sort of accessible to everyone at the moment to be used to your advantage. And it's very likely it's going to be an aspect of it that could benefit your business right now, whether it might even be drafting emails for you. So then you've just got to quickly look over it, make sure that it's A-okay and before you send it out. And it's potentially going to even do a better job than you might.
Yeah, and save you a lot of time too.
It's incredible. Even as far as like reviewing this podcast, like you could run, there's already software that exists that you could upload this like podcast to, it'll create a transcript and then it's going to make editing it and edit it as well. Like there's tons of cool stuff.
Yeah, heaps of stuff you can do.
What's your opinion on the importance of routine and consistency?
I think to be good at anything, you've got to do it to be exceptional at anything, you've got to do it for an inordinate amount of time. So like unless you stick at something and you're consistent with it, it's unreasonable to expect to be exceptional at it. And I think like another thing that I've learned is that the difference between good and great is not, it's 50 times the effort. And when you're really good at something, like to use it like an analogy, like runners, and Jaden, you'll like this because you're a runner.
Yeah, I'm listening. Tell me.
Jaden's a runner for those that don't know.
How can I be a great one?
He also boxes as well for the ladies listening.
I try. I got some. Look at that. Look at those hands.
But it's like professional runners. They'll spend 5 years to run 10 milliseconds faster, and that's different. That could be the difference between first and fourth. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to realize that. Like you'll experience a ton of growth doing something, like a ton of progress in the first 2-3 years that you do something. Probably sooner. I think it's sooner. I think it's, what is it, 100 hours? Is it 100 hours, 1,000 hours?
I think it's 18 minutes a day or something. It was like what I heard. If you practice something for 18 minutes a day after... I forget the
I know there's a metric.
Yeah.
To be honest,
anyway.
like I know there's a metric that gets thrown around a bit, and it might be 1,000 hours until you're a master at something. It's something like that.
I think it's 10,000. 10,000
maybe.
Yeah.
I know there's a metric, but basically, like you're gonna experience 90% of the progress that you're going to make regarding that. It's going to be in the first like if you're actually giving it a good crack, probably a year, and then every year after that, it's not going to be as exciting because it's only going to be a little difference it's only a little difference, but
over time.
that makes all the difference.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to realize that, and that's partly why I jumped from opportunity to opportunity, because I got bored and things weren't progressing.
Yeah.
But they weren't progressing because I was good at it. So and I wasn't challenged by it, but I needed to, I guess, recognize that the challenge it's not about new, it's about better.
Yeah.
And there's a cost to that, and it's boredom is potentially the cost to that.
Yeah. I think a lot of people do that. I noticed that on Instagram. There's a lot of people that do something for a little bit and sort of make a little bit of money, and then they sort of jump to this, jump to that, jump to that. But so you're saying like it's more important to focus on the one thing and to sort of really hone in on that and sort of make it better and better and better.
My thoughts are, like, if your ambition is to be exceptional, then don't start anything you're not willing to do forever, or for an inordinate amount of time, because it's just not going to, that's, for me, the business that I'm sticking with, and sort of the business I'm moving away from. The reason I'm sticking with the business I'm sticking with is because I want to be doing this forever. And I recognize that, again, provided I continue making improvements to this business, it is reasonable to expect it to get continuously better.
One big thing that a lot of people sort of talk about is only do a business you're passionate about. Do you think that plays a big part of being successful in whatever your niche is?
I think the crossroads between what you're good at and what you like, that's where you're going to be. It's easier it just comes down to how easy is it to put time into that. And if you like it, you're going to be more inclined to put time into it because you actually enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas you can be super disciplined, and you can put time into something that you don't like, and you can still be absolutely exceptional at it. I'm sure there are professional sportsmen that are just gifted beyond belief that don't actually like that sport, but they just do it because it's, again, they have the ability, it's financially viable. Do you know what I mean? But so from my perspective is, with discipline, you can be exceptional at anything, assuming that you're predisposed to being pretty good at that anyway. You know what I mean? If you're not 7'5", you're probably not going to make the NBA. If you're 5'2", you're probably not going to make the NBA. So you can put as much time in as you want, but it's probably not going to get there. But if you're predisposed to being pretty good at it, you've got genetics that
align
again
with whatever it is,
are likely to aid you in the pursuit of whatever it is. Or then, even if you don't like it, you can still be exceptional at it. But very likely that the likelihood of you sticking at it for long enough to be great at it increases the more you actually enjoy it.
Definitely. One question, I think, to wrap it up on. Excuse me. If you had to narrow it down to one thing, what would be your sort of your biggest sort of life lesson along the way so far?
For me, that's a great question. I think that the lesson that has served me best is that it's not about doing more; it's about doing less but better. That's the lesson that served me best. Because for a long time, and it cost my livelihood to a degree as well, but for a long time I just kept adding more plates, and I thought that was going to get me further. But it's only since I've recognised that it's not about spinning 10 plates; it's about spinning one really, really well. That I've actually, not only have I found what I'm I've derived more fulfillment through what I'm doing because I'm not so burnt out and I'm not so frazzled. And it's also likely because now that I can focus on that one thing, I'm making progress that I haven't in a while. And that's also gratifying as well.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
Boom. Dropping bombs. Dropping bombs.
Really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for the time, Chris. Appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for having me.
No worries. We'll get you back on in a few months once this app launches.
I'd love to.
How exciting.
Awesome.